Hello Comparison Test viewers, and welcome back to another All Cars Everyday video. I'm standing here with the brand new 2021 Nissan Rogue, which was just redesigned for this model year. I would like to extend a thank you to Carousel Nissan for lending me a 2021 Rogue to film with. They're located at 817 Highway 1 West in Iowa City, Iowa, and from my experience, the staff was proactive and extremely helpful. You can check out their new and used inventory on their website at carouselnissan.com, or you can give them a call at 319-208-3334 to be connected with a sales representative. And this is the 2021 Toyota RAV4, which is one of the more popular entrants in the compact SUV segment. Before we get into the comparison, I want to thank Toyota of Iowa City for letting me film with two of their RAV4s. Located at 1445 Iowa 1 in Iowa City, this dealer has a sprawling showroom with a friendly sales staff at the ready and a beautiful lounge area and service bay. Visit ToyotaIowaCity.com or give them a call to learn more. And finally, here is the last competitor in this comparison, the 2021 Honda CR-V. I'm comparing these three SUVs in 8 different categories, and I'm assigning an advantage to a particular SUV in each of those 8 categories. Furthermore, I'm comparing these three SUVs around the $30,000 price point, which means I'm comparing them at specific trim levels, and I won't be adding any options or packages to those trim levels besides all-wheel drive to keep the comparison test as fair as possible. With that out of the way, let's get into our first area of evaluation, which is going to be the value proposition. Thank you to Continental Honda for letting me film with a 2021 CR-V. Located at 5901 South LaGrange Road in Countryside, Illinois, this dealer has a friendly staff, beautiful showroom and lobby area, and is the biggest Honda dealership I've been to, with a huge variety of new and used vehicles. Give them a call at 708-581-7049 or visit them at continentalhonda.com. In this category, we take a look at the MSRP of each vehicle, and then look at the standard features offered for that price. The brand new Rogue in the SL trim comes with an MSRP of $33,400. For that price, the exterior of the vehicle is fitted with 19-inch aluminum alloy wheels, roof rails, heated outside mirrors that tilt down when you put the vehicle in reverse, and a motion-activated liftgate that works if you hold your foot under the rear bumper for a second or two, which is useful if your hands are full. Exterior lighting is exclusively LED, including the daytime running lights, headlights, tail lamps, and fog lights. Getting into and locking the vehicle on the way out is made easier with Nissan's Intelligent Key, which is a keyless access system on the door similar to the other systems found on most new vehicles. Once inside, drivers can find their preferred seating position with the 8-way power driver's seat, including power lumbar adjustment, and passengers can do the same with 4 ways of power adjustment. Both those front seats are heated, and the driver is also treated to a 2-position memory system that adjusts the driver's seat and mirror positions depending on which fob is used to start the vehicle. The rear seats fold in a 60-40 split and can be folded remotely via a lever in the cargo hold, which is a feature that, as far as my research goes, does not come in any competitive vehicle in this price point. All 5 seats are trimmed in leather in the SL. There are 2 screens controlling the majority of the functions in the vehicle, the most prominent of which is the infotainment screen in the middle of the dashboard. But first, let's take a look at the advanced drive assist display behind the steering wheel. It's a 7-inch screen that serves as the driver information center. It's cycled through its menus with steering wheel mounted controls, and it covers things like fuel economy, tire pressures, audio information, and active safety info, among other things. It's mounted directly between an analog tachometer and temperature gauge on the left, and an analog speedometer and fuel gauge on the right. Front and center is the Nissan Connect 8-inch touchscreen display, which is the host of Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, Bluetooth, and a Sirius XM trial subscription. Music playing ability runs through the Rogue's 6-speaker audio system. There are plenty of convenience features in the Rogue as well, coming with a dual-panel panoramic moonroof, a heated steering wheel, tri-zone automatic climate control, push-button start, and an auto-dimming rear-view mirror. There is also remote start on the fob, sunshades for the rear windows, an express up and down window for the driver, and the divide and hide cargo system that allows different and potentially more efficient ways to store your cargo in the hold. Being a brand new model, the Rogue offers a total of 6 ways to charge your devices, including 2 USB Type-A ports and 2 USB Type-C ports, as well as two 12-volt outlets. Those devices can be connected to the standard 4G LTE Wi-Fi hotspot, but that is also used to connect the vehicle to the Nissan Connect app. This allows owners remote access to their vehicle with functions like starting, lock and unlock, and more from their smart device. Like most other manufacturers, this service turns into a subscription-based model after the initial 6 months. The 2021 RAV4 XLE Premium All-Wheel Drive has an MSRP of $31,450. The exterior has 19-inch super chrome alloy wheels, heated side view mirrors, black roof rails, a dual chrome-tipped exhaust, and a power-operated liftgate out back. Lighting up front is taken care of by the multi-LED headlights with chrome bezels and the LED daytime running lights. The XLE Premium has fog lights and LED tail lamps as well. The front doors are part of the keyless access system that affords entry and exit to the RAV4 without having to use the fob. When it comes to seating, the driver is treated to an 8-way power-adjustable driver's seat, including power lumbar support. The passenger gets 4 ways of manual adjustment, and the rear seats fold in 60/40 sections. All seating surfaces are trimmed in Softex synthetic leather. Despite not being the real deal, it's pretty impressive regardless. Speaking of the real deal, the steering wheel and shift knob are trimmed in real leather. In the middle of the dashboard sits Toyota's 7-inch color touchscreen infotainment system that's the host for Bluetooth, Sirius XM, and Apple CarPlay, as well as Android Auto. All of that audio playing capability runs through the SUV's 6-speaker audio system. There's another screen behind the steering wheel in the gauge cluster that's the 4.2-inch driver information center. In this vehicle, it has a customizable clock, outside temperature reading, fuel economy information, and more. To the left of that screen is an analog tachometer with the engine temperature gauge below it. To the right of the screen is an analog speedometer with the fuel gauge. Convenience features on the Toyota include dual-zone automatic climate control, push-button start, express windows at all 4 corners, and an electronic parking brake with auto hold. Finally, there's a power tilt and sliding moonroof, as well as plenty of places to plug in your phone, including 5 USB ports, one of which is a data USB port, as well as 2 charge-only USB ports per row. There are also 2 traditional 12-volt outlets in the cabin, and a Wi-Fi connection for passengers that can also be used on the Toyota Connected Services app. Standard, owners get Safety Connect with stolen vehicle locator, collision notification to the Toyota Response Center, roadside assistance, and an SOS button, free for a year. The 2021 Honda CR-V EXL outfitted with all-wheel drive has an MSRP of $31,950. It has LED fog lights and DRL standard, as well as multi-reflector halogen headlights and bulb-type tail lamps. Other exterior features include heated side mirrors, roof rails up top, and a powered tailgate. Rolling duty is taken care of by the 18-inch alloy wheels, and entry and exit duties are done using the Smart Entry with walkaway auto lock. It's a cumbersome name for the Smart Key system, which lets you open the door without using the fob, like other manufacturers. Honda's system is a tad unique in the fact that it lets you leave the car without ever touching a sensor or button on the door handle to lock it. It just locks by itself when the driver leaves a certain radius from the vehicle. Inside, picky drivers can find their ideal seating position with the 12-way power driver seat that includes 4 ways of power lumbar adjustment, and passengers get 4 ways of power adjustment as well. Both those front seats are heated, and all seats in the CR-V are leather, including the rear 60/40 split folding bench seat. There are 2 screens in the 2021 CR-V, as there are in many other new vehicles. The first is behind the steering wheel, directly in the center of the gauge cluster. It's the driver information center, and cycling through its menus and features with the steering wheel mounted controls reveals its abilities to display audio, active safety, trip readout, fuel economy, and tire pressure information, among more. On the left is an atypical analog temperature gauge that's shaped like a boomerang, and on the right is a similarly shaped fuel gauge. The tachometer, if you're interested, is displayed in a light arc at the top of the screen. The other screen in the car is a 7-inch color touchscreen that's the host for the infotainment system and features like Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, Bluetooth, and a Sirius XM trial subscription. All this music playing ability goes through the CR-V's 180-watt 8-speaker audio system. There are also plenty of convenience features standard on the EXL, which include push-button start, dual-zone automatic climate control, an express up and down window for the driver and front passenger, remote start via the fob, and an electronic parking brake with auto hold. Up top, there's an auto dimming rearview mirror, a HomeLink universal transceiver, and a one-touch power moonroof with a tilt feature. Places to plug in include 2 USB ports per row, as well as a traditional 12-volt outlet in the center console. Finally, all CR-V trims beyond the base LX version get the Honda Link trial, where owners can remotely start, lock, unlock, track, and more via an app on their smart device. This is free for the first 3 months of ownership. After that, these services require a $110 a year subscription, just like many other manufacturers. You also get a 1-year trial of the security services package, which is a virtual dashboard, automatic collision notification, and emergency calling at the push of a button. Again, once the 1-year trial is up, this service is $89 a year. In this category, the Honda gets the advantage. The Nissan has the most features, and initially I thought it was going to win value, but it's $1,450 more expensive than the CR-V and $1,950 more than the Toyota. Now let's remember that the Rogue SL also has 19-inch wheels, full LED exterior lighting, the motion-activated liftgate, a panoramic moonroof, those remote rear seats, a heated steering wheel, and the tri-zone climate control. Those last 5 features aren't found on either of these other 2 vehicles in the trims we're testing. It's up to you whether those features are worth $1,400 to $1,900, but to me, I think the Honda presents the best value proposition. It has 1-inch smaller wheels and doesn't have full LED exterior lighting like the other 2, but it matches the Rogue's gauge cluster screen, has the most speakers on the interior, and has the most power adjustment options for the driver's seat, as well as having a power passenger seat. To me, that's worth the $500 premium over the RAV4, but you do forego the LED headlights and slightly bigger wheels that the RAV4 has. Honestly, this segment is so close, I can leave this totally up to the audience. Nissan doesn't make a direct competitor in terms of price to the RAV4 XLE Premium and the CR-V EXL. For the most part, they price the Rogue slightly more expensive in every comparable trim than the RAV4 and CR-V. It's up to you to decide whether its features justify the premium, because it's a really close call in this case between all 3 vehicles. In this category, we take a look at the standard active safety technology of each vehicle, as well as reviewing the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety's passive crash test results. The new Rogue has Nissan's typical gamut of active safety technology, which includes Pro Pilot Assist, forward collision warning, automatic emergency braking with pedestrian detection, lane departure warning, intelligent lane intervention, blind spot warning, intelligent blind spot intervention, rear cross traffic alert, an intelligent around view monitor, rear parking sensors, rear automatic braking, and high beam assist. The 2021 Rogue is not yet rated by the IIHS, but the last model was a 2019 top safety pick despite being a 6-year-old model. I fully expect the 2021 model to get at least that rating when it's finally evaluated. The 2021 RAV4 has lots of active safety equipment standard as well, including a pre-collision system with pedestrian detection, lane departure alert with steering assist, automatic high beams, lane tracing assist, road sign assist, and a blind spot monitor with rear cross traffic alert. It was rated the 2nd highest rank from the IIHS as a 2020 top safety pick. It received the highest rating of good in every category but headlights, which had a range from poor to good. The 2021 CR-V aims to protect its occupants with a panoply of active safety features, including forward collision warning, lane departure warning, a collision mitigation braking system, a road departure mitigation system, a lane keeping system, adaptive cruise control with low speed follow, automatic high beams, and a blind spot information system with a cross traffic monitor. It also scored very well in IIHS testing, coming in as a 2020 top safety pick, like the Toyota. In each individual category, it was given the highest possible rating of good everywhere except headlights, which were rated marginal or good, and the ease of use of the child seat anchors, which was rated average. In this category, the Nissan gets the advantage. It has the most active safety features standard, like Pro Pilot, rear automatic braking with rear parking sensors, and the intelligent around view monitor. Though it isn't rated by the IIHS yet, I expect it to improve on the last model, which was already rated very highly, so it's a safe assumption to say that it gets the safety advantage. In this category, we take a look at the engine, transmission, 0 to 60 time, and other performance features that are relevant to each vehicle. The Rogue is a new model for 2021, but the engine stays the same as previous years. That's the 2.5-liter inline 4-cylinder engine. It makes 181 horsepower and 181 pound-feet of torque, all of which is routed through the continuously variable transmission, or CVT, to all 4 wheels when conditions call for it. Front-wheel drive is standard, but I've added the extra cost of the all-wheel drive system into the MSRP, seeing as most SUVs are purchased with all-wheel drive. Despite lacking real gears, the CVT has paddle shifters and a manual mode. We'll check out how well it works in the driving impressions category. The drivetrain does have eco and sport modes, as well as a snow and off-road mode to prime the all-wheel drive drive system. All told, 0 to 60 takes 8.2 seconds in the new Rogue with all-wheel drive. The RAV4 has a 2.5-liter inline four-cylinder that had a significant update in 2019 to make 203 horsepower and 184 pound-feet of torque. It routes power through an 8-speed automatic transmission with a sequential shift mode accessed through the gear selector. The engine has a stop-start system for fuel economy purposes, and the powertrain has eco, normal, and sport modes. Front-wheel drive is standard, but I have added the all-wheel drive system into the MSRP. It brings with it a multi-terrain select system with modes for mud and sand, rock and dirt, and snow. 0 to 60 takes 8.2 seconds. The 2021 CR-V uses Honda's newer, smaller displacement, boosted 1.5-liter inline four-pod, good for 190 horsepower and 179 pound-feet of twist. It's mated to a CVT that sends power to the front wheels under normal loads and conditions, but like other all-wheel drive systems can sense poor conditions and adjust to have torque sent rearward as well. The engine is outfitted with an Eco Assist system and the ability to turn off temporarily at idle, all in the interest of saving fuel. This powertrain motivates the CR-V from a standstill to 60 miles per hour in 7.6 seconds, which in typical modern Honda fashion is on the quicker end of the segment. In this category, the Honda gets the advantage. The Toyota has the horsepower and torque advantage, and an 8-speed auto like the one found in the RAV4 is almost always preferable to a CVT, but the Honda is quicker to 60 miles per hour. I'm not basing advantage based solely off of speed, but I think it's more impressive to extract more out of a smaller displacement engine with new fuel-saving technology on board. In this category, we take a look at how efficient those powertrains are by looking at their miles per gallon, their average fuel range, and their yearly fuel cost. The new Rogue gets 25 miles per gallon of gas in the city and 32 on the highway, for a combined rating of 28 mpg. The Toyota and Honda both get 27 miles per gallon in the city, with the Honda getting 32 on the highway and the Toyota getting 33 for the same combined 29. The longest cruising range comes from the Toyota with 421 miles, and the other two tie at 406 miles. Naturally, the Toyota is the cheapest to fuel every year, assuming you drive 15,000 miles annually and gas is $2.22 a gallon, costing $1,107 per year to keep gassed up. The CR-V is next with $1,148, and the Rogue brings up the rear with $1,189. In this category, the Toyota gets the advantage by a hair, offering the longest cruising range, the least amount in gas expenditure, and the highest highway rating. Now, that being said, check out how close the three were in this category. There's no reason to choose one over the other for fuel economy purposes, unless fuel economy is your number one priority by all means. Then I would suggest checking out the RAV4 hybrid and the CR-V hybrid. In this category, I take a look at the projected reliability of each vehicle as predicted by Consumer Reports. They extensively test every new vehicle for sale and use historical data to try and accurately forecast new car reliability. They rate each vehicle on a scale from much worse than average to much better than average. The Nissan Rogue is rated better than average from Consumer Reports, whereas the Toyota is rated average. This is based on a 3-year moving average of data from real owners. But if you're not familiar with car brands, I think most people would say that Toyota is a top-tier brand in terms of reliability. I would call Nissan more of an average brand, so it's ironic how the data reflected the opposite. The Honda is rated average as well. I won't argue with data, so the Nissan gets the advantage. But I just want to point out that I'm not sure the data is doing a great job reflecting the anecdotal evidence in this case. Functionality is where I wrap up the loose ends of the comparison and include important buying factors that are relevant to purchasing these vehicles, but don't fit into other categories, such as interior dimensions, warranty, and cargo capacity. All three vehicles have the same warranty, which is a 3-year, 36,000-mile general warranty and a 5-year, 60,000-mile powertrain warranty. The Toyota has the most rear headroom at 39.5 inches, with the Honda coming in only 0.4 of an inch less, and the Nissan has 37.8, which was not a noticeable shrink for my 5'10" frame. The Toyota has the most shoulder room by a 1/2 inch on the Nissan and 0.8 on the Honda. The Nissan has loads more rear hip room though, with a full 5.7 inches on the Toyota and nearly 4 inches on the Honda. Unfortunately, I can't confirm how much larger it feels with 3 people in the back, but if you don't like apologizing for that awkward interaction where you reach your hand near someone else's rear end looking for your seatbelt, the Nissan is the one that you'll best be able to avoid that scenario in. The Honda has the most rear leg room by about 2 inches over the Nissan and over 2.5 inches on the Toyota. Let's move on to the cargo cargo capacity though. The Honda has the most cargo capacity of the group in both measurements. It has 39.2 cubic feet behind the rear seats to the Toyota's 37.5 cubes and the Nissan's 36.3. With the second row down in each vehicle, the Honda still has the most and actually widens the gap. You could fit a full 75.8 cubes back there compared to the Toyota's 69.8 and the Nissan's 72.9 cubic feet. Finally, the Honda and Toyota can tow 1,500 pounds and the Nissan tops out at 1,350. But towing isn't really as much of a priority with these vehicles as interior space is. Overall, the Honda takes this category. It was either a close second or a very close third in every interior dimension, only being put to shame by the Nissan's rear hip room, where it still placed second at least. And then most importantly, it had the most space for stuff in both measurements, which gave it the advantage handily. In this category, I drive each of the vehicles on real roads and rate my subjective opinions on driving style. Typically, my commentary includes noise, vibration, and harshness levels, steering feel and weight, suspension bump absorption, acceleration, brake feel, ergonomics of the cabin, and general handling. I am not testing these vehicles at a track, nor am I pushing them to their absolute limits. Furthermore, like I mentioned, this is a subjective category, so I recommend making sure you test drive each vehicle yourself to confirm or deny your own opinions on the vehicle experience. All right, here we are in the 2021 Nissan Rogue. All right, before we even get into anything, I want to talk about the shifter. I don't dislike it now, but I really disliked it 10 minutes ago when I could not figure out how to get the car into reverse. And it was a huge problem, enough that I actually had to get on YouTube and search up how do I put 2021 Nissan Rogue into reverse, because I could not figure out how to work the shifter. Drive and park are pretty simple. Drive, you pull backward on it. Park, you push the button. Neutral, you push forward the way that I thought I would get into reverse. But reverse is actually push the button on the side, not the park button, the button on the side, and then push toward neutral past like the point of resistance, and then you get reverse. There's two buttons. There's two different ways that you can shift. I think it's stupid. I much prefer just a normal shifter or even just a normal button shifter. But I've got two buttons that do different things, two ways that I can move it. Why are there so many things that I can do with that? Let's talk about the big positives. This is a brand new vehicle. I feel like the fit and finish in here is really good. There's a lot of soft touch materials. They've hidden the hard plastics from me. I can't find the hard plastics, which is great. The buttons and things and knobs and all that kind of click nice. It feels much more upscale, and everything in here feels better built, which is actually not what I was expecting to be able to say about this new car. Not that I thought they were going to build it worse, just I kind of expected it to maybe feel a little bit more premium than the last version, but I didn't expect it to feel so much better built, I guess, than that. In a second here, we'll test the acceleration and all that, but as for visibility, you can actually see really well out the sides, and the rear's pretty good as well. So it's above average visibility out the sides in the rear. In the front here, let me put this up. It's gonna blind me for a second, but I just wanna see the full range. So the front's also actually really good visibility. I would say visibility in this whole vehicle is above average. The A-pillars are really thin, actually. The A-pillars are nice. We're gonna test out the Pro Pilot Assist. We're gonna test out the gas and brakes. Speaking of, let's do the brakes right now. So this is, again, characteristic of Nissan brakes. This is just a preference thing. I personally like a bit of a harder pedal. Like, I like it to literally be harder when it's, pushing back against my foot. Their Nissan brake pedals just don't do that as much, which is fine. It's personal preference. Let's test Pro Pilot Assist. We're gonna turn off the heated steering wheel, which is also very nice. Okay, so cruise control's on. Let's see if it'll follow. It's steering pretty well. So while we're testing this system, let's talk about comfort. So Nissan is actually renowned for their seats. They developed them with NASA, and it wasn't just some marketing gimmick. It was really I forget what they're called, something seats, because they developed them with NASA and all that. They're really nice seats, especially in this vehicle. I like these better than I even like the Altimas. But seriously, the seats are really good. So this is the bumpiest road that I can find near me. Let's see how it handles it. And the RAV4 went over this exact same set of pavement. Okay, so it is sprung stiffer than I think the RAV4 is, but it makes the same amount of noise. So both vehicles, I would say, made the same amount of noise with these bumps, like letting noise get into the cabin, which is a totally reasonable amount of noise, by the way. The noise that gets into the cabin with these bumps, very reasonable. Once again, like I disclaim in every test that I go over this road, and this is an extremely bumpy road, the camera's shaking and all that, because these are downtown Chicago style potholes, and they are all in a consecutive row. So I go slow over them and all that, but all right, let's test the acceleration. I hesitate to say that the acceleration's underwhelming. Seat of the pants it feels a lot slower. It makes a lot of noise, and it does a lot of this, fake shifting because it's CVT, obviously. But I don't think I feel the actual shove, It makes a lot of noise, and I think, hey, I'm going fast. I look down the speedometer, and, I don't really know that I'm going that fast, to be honest with you. The steering, I like the weight, just like I liked it in the Altima. There's, no feel that comes through. It's a little light, I guess. I wish it could be, heavier. It's pretty linear, I want to say. And the turning radius is really good for an SUV of this size. The steering tells you nothing about the car's handling limits, essentially. I'm turning, and the car's got some body roll, but the steering doesn't weight up at all, and it's really light, and it's not super confidence-inspiring. Yeah, if anything, I would want to waver on the side of overboosted, which I guess I would say it is, just a tad bit overboosted. That's definitely the side you want to err on with, SUVs like this. Now, the one thing, though, that has not changed really at all is the infotainment system. And to put it bluntly, it's really not great compared to every other manufacturer that I can have ever tested before. It's very tough. It's not good at all. So it's good at keeping distance. And like I tested it in the Altima, it was pretty good at slowing down too. There was one time I was like, oh, and I just hit the brakes and turned it off. But other than that, it actually slows down literally like the way that I would slow down. Like the same smooth, there's no jerkiness. And it kind of lets you coast a little bit as well sometimes, which is nice. Sport mode does not feel any faster to me. It just seems like it's holding a higher RPM. I mean, it doesn't seem like it is. It is literally holding a higher RPM. So I just tried out the paddle shifters right there. The car will upshift for you. I prefer sport systems and paddle shifters that don't do that, but it is what it is. So basically, sport mode in this car is you use the paddle shifters, it'll try to mimic an 8-speed auto. Overall, it's a very solid vehicle. I think they've made, I don't think anything. I know that Nissan has made big, huge, massive strides between the 2019 Rogue, the 2020 Rogue and the 2021 Rogue. I mean, this is miles ahead. Besides the infotainment system, this vehicle is miles ahead of their old Rogue from the 2020 model year. I mean, and that thing came out in, I think, 2014. It came out in 2014 and it ran to 2020. I mean, it was very dated last year, and this one feels nice and new and good, minus the infotainment system. I really do think that Nissan, of course, is going to have another hit on its hands, and people will really enjoy this vehicle. I mean, it truly is, better than the previous version, and in some respects, it's better than the competition, so. Before we move on to the next car, I want to point out that the Rogue's doors open much wider than the other two vehicles, almost to a 90-degree angle. This makes entry and exit much easier if you're not in a tight parking space. Here I am in the brand new 2021 Toyota RAV4 XLE. This particular model is not the premium, but don't worry, all the interior and exterior footage was of an XLE Premium Hybrid. But for the driving impressions part of this comparison, since I'm comparing a theoretical XLE Premium, just gas-powered RAV4 without the hybrid portion, I thought that I would drive both vehicles to make sure that I get an accurate representation of what the engine, transmission, and NVH sound like, noise, vibration, harshness. Because as you know, the hybrid is lacking a lot of NVH, especially since it can operate in EV mode. Right off the bat, I do like the brake of the regular RAV4 better than the hybrid. The hybrid brakes were totally fine in terms of safety and actually stopping the vehicle. They felt a little soft to me though, and there was a lot of travel, I felt like, compared to what I expect out of a normal brake pedal and out of, believe it or not, a Toyota brake pedal. And so what I'm feeling right now in the RAV4 just gas version is much more appropriate. It's a good brake pedal. It's not quite as good as maybe the Mazda's, I would say, but it's very good nonetheless. Let's see the turning radius. Good. Better, obviously better than my current car, as you guys have been hearing. Next up, let's talk about visibility. Visibility in the RAV4 is very good. The windows are taller, the A-pillars are much thinner. The windshield is more steeply raked than, say, the Subaru, but the side view is very good, and the rear view is pretty good as well. Okay, noise, vibration, harshness. Really not that much worse than the hybrid. I was expecting there to be a big difference, but because the hybrid can operate in EV mode a lot of the time, but really there's not that much of a difference. The seats are awesome. So right now I'm testing the lane keeping system.
So it knows I'm not grabbing onto the steering wheel. It does ping pong back and forth in the lane. It kept me in it. It ping pongs back and forth. And again, that's not a system that's designed to, you know, drive the car. It's more if I start, you know, going over the line, it alerts me and it puts me back in my lane. Here's a very bumpy road. Let's see how it handles it. Good. I mean, that was pretty good. Again, I'm going slow over things. So this is extremely rough pavement, extremely rough pavement. And I think it's handling it pretty well. It's handling this pavement pretty well. Here, let's go over it again. Here's some pretty big bumps right here. Yeah, that's very good. Pedal to the metal, much louder than the hybrid. Awesome transmission. Boy, this thing's fun. This thing's almost as fun as the Mazda as far as I'm concerned. Transmission is not afraid to hold a gear. Kudos. I like this 8-speed. It's not grabbing for the highest possible gear in the interest of fuel economy. The RAV4 gets going. This felt fast to me. This felt like a faster vehicle. The steering is a good weight. There's more body roll, and the steering is not telling me much at all, which, again, all of this is totally fine. This is nitpicking when you're talking about a 5-passenger midsize SUV. It almost feels like the steering is going light. You know, the longer I'm turning like this, it does have a very good dead spot in the center. You don't want too much dead spot because then it's got too much play, but you don't want no dead spot either. Like I would say the Mazda didn't have any dead spot at all. And that's because when you're on the highway and tiny little corrections in the steering wheel make a big difference at the speed you're traveling, you want a little bit of a dead spot in the middle so that the wheel can move a little bit. And I think this thing has a good dead spot. So I think the weighting and the dead spot is good. I think the feedback and the boosting after you start turning it is a little just on par, I guess I would say. All right, easing into it, but then full throttle. Oh my God, yeah. Oh my God. Wow, off the rip, this thing is quick. All right, that's enough. This thing is quick off the rip. I'm glad I did a dig with this thing because that is a much quicker vehicle than you get when you're already at speed. All right, here we are, 2021 Honda CR-V EXL all-wheel drive. So while we're sitting at the stoplight here, I want to say that these are probably my favorite seats of the cars in this particular comparison. I think these are my favorite seats. It's kind of aggressive bolstering, to be honest with you. It's almost like a 4-inch bolster. My frame and body fit in them really well. I'm 5'10", like 170, 175. And I fit in them really well. And if I took a turn pretty fast, this seat would do a great job keeping me in the seat. And instead of throwing me off toward, you know, oblivion, toward the door, or using my knees to brace against the door when I'm taking a corner faster. So I really like these seats. I also think they're pretty comfortable. All right, so we're gonna get on it a little bit. This feels faster to me than the Rogue. I think the Rogue was potentially genuinely slower than like this or the RAV4. There's a little bar, a little green bar that you would never know about if you do any amount of research before you test drive this vehicle. At the top of the instrument cluster, it turns dark green, like kind of when you're coasting, when you're not using a lot of gas or a lot of energy, and it turns, well, let's see what color. White when you're using a lot of energy, which is nice. It's not an obtrusive feature. It's just kind of a nice little reminder there. Kind of makes you want to get as much out of the car, fuel economy wise, as you can. Now let's talk about visibility. Out the front of the car is pretty good. Out the side of the car, also pretty good. Maybe second best only to the Subaru Forester. And then out the rear is probably the best in the segment for me personally. I think it's got a very upright rear window. In fact, the whole tailgate's pretty upright. Here's a big bump. Let's check this out. Okay, that's pretty good. Now back to what I was saying. The rear, again, is very good visibility. I think that's probably segment leading in terms of rear visibility. Definitely better than the RAV4, which wasn't that bad. Better than the Rogue, which also was not that bad. And far better than the Mazda, which was actually pretty bad. Engine noise in this car, I feel like is less than both the Toyota and the Nissan. I could be wrong about that from a decibel standpoint, but from an ear standpoint, this car feels quieter to me. I do like the steering wheel. I'm not as big of a fan of the way that the spokes look, and Honda's moving away, I think, from these, you know, round, plasticky feeling gauges, or not gauges, but buttons. Look, you can hear me. I'm not even pressing them. I'm just tapping my fingers on them, and they're loud. You know, that implies a little bit of cost cutting there. But one thing I do want to point out though is the steering wheel feels awesome. The 9 and 3 areas are right where your hands want to sit. It's got good grip. It's the right. So you can hear these bumps, right? Oh, here's some good bumps right here. I do feel like it's hitting them a little harder than like maybe the Rogue, maybe the RAV4 too. You know, yeah, they're coming. I would say in this car, the bumps come through more than in the other two in this comparison, and probably more than the CX-5 and Forester that I drove recently as well. They come through more and you hear them more, especially out of the rear. You know, boom, bum, 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 you hear it. And again, I do want to point out, this suspension is not one where you're like, oh my gosh, this is so different from another SUV that I'm going to choose to buy a different SUV. So far, I've not come across a suspension where I'm like, wow, this is really throwing me around and I would buy another entrant in this class. What have I just turned onto? Oh, I have somehow turned onto a toll road without my knowledge, which is rather unfortunate if you ask me. You know, every once in a while reviewing cars, you put yourself in a situation that you didn't expect to be in. Not only am I don't want to go on the highway right now, I certainly don't want to pay a toll in the state of Illinois. There was a good way to evaluate the turning radius, which I thought was pretty good. And the fact, again, that I'm not talking about the CVT right here is pretty important. The more I talk about, oh, this is a CVT, this is a CVT, that means I'm noticing it. I'm not really noticing in this one. I think in other vehicles, like the RAV4, for example, the RAV4 hybrid, I should say, not the gas RAV4. I have made the comment that I don't like it when CVTs try and fake shift. Same with the Subaru, actually. Both those two cars, I didn't like it when CVTs fake shifted. And this one fake shifts, and I do like it. I guess it just really comes down to the individual transmission. This one in particular is pretty good, I think. So I don't think sport mode makes this thing noticeably faster. The lane keeping system in Hondas, maybe it's not all Hondas, it's just this one. It really lets you kind of get over the lane, and it's very not aggressive. It's a very passive system. It wants to correct you, but not really. Either this lane keeping system is pretty bad, or I literally have not figured out how to use it yet, which either way is not great news. I can't figure out, oh, there it is, lane departure. So what was the difference with all the other times I tried it? Lane departure, lane departure. Okay, I think it was actually just straight up not recognizing the road a lot previously. It seems like it was not recognizing orange lane markings, it was only recognizing white. And when it does flash at me, lane departure, yeah, see, it's not getting any of this right here. Okay. So I would say that Nissan's system is way better, and Toyota's system is just, actually, it's a decent amount better. This one's not so hot, I would say, from a lane keeping standpoint. All right, so we are going to try the adaptive cruise control, and we are going to see if the adaptive cruise control will slow down with the vehicle in front of me. So I haven't had my hands on the wheel. Steering required. Okay, it knows. I'm not going around any turns now, but it is steering for me. It's letting off the gas too, to stay on this person. I think the lane keeping system was not great, but this adaptive cruise control seems to be pretty good. I want to get to a red light so it will slow down. Here we go, perfect. Okay, so the car in front of me is braking, and we're braking too. It's pretty good. Nice gentle stop. Okay, I mean, that was good. That was as good as ProPilot as far as I'm concerned. The thing that's different, though, about this test versus the Nissan ProPilot test is I have not gone around a bump yet. I have not gone around a curb yet. I haven't gone around a turn yet, a curve. And ProPilot did a very good job of keeping me in those curves, those bends, and we'll see if Honda's, all right, so we've got a green light. Let's see if we accelerate as well here. No. Okay, so here's two more things. Number one, either this system's features don't involve accelerating from a green light like Nissan's do, or it just took so long that I felt like I was holding up the people behind me and I had to accelerate. A second thing, I do want to point out, ProPilot is for sure better. And because this car has been kind of going back and forth between the lane markings a little bit here. Let's talk about steering. I think it's a very direct, quick rack. I enjoy the steering in this car very much. I think it's good for cruising as well. It doesn't take a lot to move it, but in a weird way, the car just kind of tracks straight generally. There's not a lot of correcting that needs to be done, to be honest with you. Honestly, this thing just feels pretty solid to me. Let's test brake feel up at this light. I think the travel is maybe longer than I want, but the feedback and pressure is perfect. So good brake pedal, no complaints there. Kind of feels like the Toyotas to me a little bit. This is definitely one of the better driving and handling entrants in this segment. I would say it's second to the Mazda, but really, I mean, the RAV4 gives it an okay run for its money, and the Rogue has a not so hot engine, I would say. The rest of the vehicle is fine. And I would say the Rogue and Toyota both have a better damped suspension in terms of impact harshness than the CR-V, but the CR-V handles better than both those, I would say. And I do like this 1.5T with this all-wheel drive, much better than I like the Nissans, probably better than I like the Toyotas. And also, I feel like it's quieter inside, so if that's something you're looking for, definitely you can pursue the Honda as well. So overall, very solid car. This is definitely something I can recommend to friends and family. This would probably be in my top 2 for purchasing as well. I think I might go Mazda first, but if I needed space, you're gonna get more space out of a CR-V than the Mazda. And so I think this would maybe be my final choice. And this is one of the older cars in this segment.
In this category, the Honda gets the advantage. There was something about the driving experience that I couldn't quite put into words, almost like the whole car was working together. It felt more buttoned down, more in agreement with itself between the engine, transmission, steering, brakes, and suspension than the other two. The Toyota has a slightly better brake feel, as well as the best infotainment screen response in test, and the Nissan may have paddle shifters for its CVT, but overall, the Honda had the best handling and dynamics. In this category, I do a light design analysis of the vehicles from my point of view. Of course, this category is completely subjective, so feel free to substitute in your own opinions as I go through what I think looks good and what could use work. The new Rogue takes on a different approach from the last model, which is more or less successful. The previous Rogue was very bland looking, to put it bluntly. This new model surely isn't bland, and if anything, it's a return to form for Nissan. I can see elements of the late Juke in this new design, especially with the two-piece headlight trend that the Juke started. Now, I think the way that Hyundai has done this trend is better than the way that Nissan does it, and I still think that for the most part, even with this new Rogue. The DRLs are mounted too high up on the front fascia, and they're too squinty looking to me. The headlights are mounted lower on the grille, which could subject them to being victims of any fender bender more easily. The grille is pretty standard Nissan with their V chrome style. Though I may not be the biggest fan of the front of the new Rogue, I am thrilled to see it be a little bit more adventurous with its design, because the Rogue has never had an inkling of style in any previous year. Plus, the high mounted headlights make it seem more truck-like than any other generation Rogue and other competitors, which could be appealing to someone trying to get into an SUV that looks the part. The side profile of the vehicle makes it pretty athletic because of the different colored roofline and the cut line in the bottom of the doors. That cut line rises toward the end of the rear door, and the roofline slopes down pretty heavily after its highest point just ahead of the B-pillar. Here too, you can see why the front of the vehicle looks so much more like a truck than competition or previous model years. It's a high nose that is flat-faced. The rear view is my favorite angle of the exterior. The tail lamps are a clear evolution of the 2020 model year vehicle, but avoid the amorphous shape that plagued that last car. The bumper pulls up aggressively toward the liftgate door, which itself is visually split into the upper portion with the tail lamps and the bottom portion with the tag and handle. It's not as bold as the front of the vehicle, but I think it looks more attractive without being too generic. Since 2019, I have thought that the RAV4 has been much better looking than in years past. It finally feels more mature than the last generation, while not being a wallflower like the generation 2 prior. It has a snubby, upright nose that reminds me of the Ram pickup truck line in the way it's shaped, but the headlights and all other design cues are all part of Toyota's new design language that moves away from the polarizing style of the last generation RAV4 and Corolla. The front chin is pulled up slightly and the headlights are angled downward as they reach toward the low-mounted grille to give it an attack-style stance, something they tried to do with the last model but didn't succeed at. The whole vehicle seems bigger and more expensive than it really is. The side profile view is potentially a little bit busy with lots of lines going in different directions at the bottom and tops of the doors, a redundant cut in the C-pillar, and squared off wheel wells. I think it could use to get rid of a couple, but I'm not sure which should be on the chopping block first. The roofline stays relatively consistent, but the rear window does slant in toward the cabin pretty heavily. Interestingly, here you can see that the taillight area is the most pointed part of the vehicle, protruding nearly as far as the rear bumper face. Also evident is the tiny bar of separation in the C-pillar between the lower body and the roof of the car to create that floating roofline look that is all the rage. I wish Toyota had done without that in this application. From the rear view, the high-mounted taillights and that protrusion in their vicinity that we just talked about makes the vehicle seem taller. Overall, from exhaust tip to roof-mounted spoiler, it seems both low to the ground and tall simultaneously. I think I'd rather see the exhaust outlets integrated somewhere into the bumper. That may be too expensive for this model, but if that's the case, then there needs to be some slimming down somewhere else. The tall effect does make it seem like a proper SUV though, which is impressive. I am less confident in the bumper eating into the tailgate sheet metal, but I bet without this cut, the tailgate would seem like a vast expanse of metal that needs some detail. So I think their current solution is better than the alternative. This generation CR-V was redesigned in the 2017 model year, and at the time it was my favorite design in the class. Now in its fourth model year on the market, I would say that it has aged extremely well relative to the competition, which is not something I would have said about the previous generation CR-V, nor would I make this claim about many of the vehicles that are cross-shopped with the CR-V. The front of the vehicle is characterized by its somewhat thin grille and angry appearing headlights. I believe there are many players in this segment who followed this trend with the headlights, which I think started to try and impart a sense of utility on these vehicles that are not any more useful than a body-on-frame SUV or a minivan. Regardless, it looks good. I also like the chin of the vehicle with the wide W-shaped cut line. Unlike the RAV4 and Rogue, it actually brings the nose of the vehicle closer to the ground visually, more like a car. The side profile may still be my favorite in the segment. Honda didn't try to create a floating roofline look, which I can always appreciate, and I think the sheet metal surfacing has the perfect amount of texture. Two more features stick out to me that sets this side profile apart from others. First, the wheel wells protrude outward, setting the cabin lower to the ground relative to where the eye thinks the wheel is. This makes it seem many times sportier than other entrants in this class. Second, there is a hockey stick shaped bit of trim at the bottom that rises from its genesis in the front door toward the rear, where it crosses the wheel and finishes in the rear quarter panel. I'm not sure that I like it running that length, because when it's finished in chrome with black wheel well lips, it looks off-centered. It does, however, do a good job finishing off the length of the car, as it also runs in conjunction with the roofline, which is sloping in the opposite direction. The rear of the CR-V is still my favorite angle though, because of its distinct taillights and the cut lines that extend the side of the quarter panel and bumper outward. I like this cut because it again flares the flanks of the vehicle, but I can see how this would be unappealing to some. Finally, I cannot confirm the floor load height of each vehicle, but visually and in application, the Honda feels like it had the lowest of the group. The bumper is nearly non-existent, with the liftgate extending almost to the bottom of the vehicle. I think it looks great and performs even better from a functionality standpoint, but I bet the liftgate takes a big part of the hit, God forbid you ever get rear-ended. The inside of the Rogue is generally very attractive. Historically, Nissans have had some of my favorite steering wheels because they have small centers. This one's center is no different, but the spokes come straight out. I don't like the new spokes at first compared to what I see on, for example, the 2021 Altima, but the Rogue spokes are growing on me and carry the more truck-like theme from the exterior into the interior. The wheel also has a flat bottom, which looks cool and implies sporting intention. The screen isn't embedded in the dash, but I swear Nissan does the best job in the industry of making a freestanding screen not look like a sore thumb. That's probably because they mount it mostly on the front face of the dashboard and have it freestanding versus putting it on top of the dashboard and having it freestanding. Anyway, the vent and climate control placement look good and are easily accessed, and the two character lines that frame the dashboard are drawn to a pinch in the passenger side. The transmission tunnel is the best Nissan has done yet in my opinion, with rising flying buttresses and its wider proportions. The shifter at least looks cool, and the rest of the tunnel is only perturbed by the cup holders and the drive mode selector. Underneath the tunnel is a large area for storing whatever trinkets your heart desires. The most interesting feature that Nissan incorporated to me is the split folding center console a la German vehicles. I think this interior style has a heavy influence from those vehicles, which is a good thing. The interior is light years ahead of the old model. I think the RAV4's interior is probably one of the best Toyota has put out recently. It avoids the layering of the current Highlander that I'm not a fan of, and it also avoids the abnormal climate infotainment gloss black trapezoid in the current Camry. The shifter is sporty looking, the transmission tunnel is an appropriate width, and the climate controls are easily accessed and organized perfectly. The screen sticks quite far out of the dash, which is a little odd, but the perfect climate control orientation sort of makes up for that fact. The center of the steering wheel is middle of the road, but the spokes are good. The rest of the dashboard has just one layer on the passenger side with a vent incorporated, much cleaner than the other Toyotas. Overall, this is a very pleasant place to be. On the interior of the CR-V, owners will find the corporate steering wheel with its circular mounted controls. I think Honda is making the move away from this exact form of buttons on the wheel, which is good because they look low rent in any interior. The rest of the wheel is appealing, and the gauge cluster looks futuristic at a minimum, if not a little weird. The center stack with the screen, shifter, and transmission tunnel reminds me too much of a minivan. The screen and vents above it are fine, but the shifter area is oriented at that 45-degree angle that is the telltale sign that you're in a minivan. It doesn't look as good as, say, the Rogues, but the EXL trim holds on to the analog shifter a little longer, which is at least functionally useful over the newer button shifters. The transmission tunnel is thin and goes straight into the firewall, completely ignoring the shifter region. The rest of the dashboard looks great, and despite the many lines in the passenger side, I don't think it pushed the boundary too far into looking busy. It looks quality and well built, but there are certainly better looking interiors out there currently. I think the next generation CR-V will sort out some of my interior nitpicks. Like last year, the Toyota gets the advantage in this category. Exterior wise, I view it on the same level as the Honda. In fact, I think they both have similar themes out there. Moving inside though, the Toyota pulls far ahead of the Honda. The Nissan's interior hangs with the best, and I commend the new exterior for taking some risks. They just don't happen to pay off for me personally. Overall, I think this is the first year since the beginning of this channel that I can finally say you can't go wrong with any of these three SUVs, or the majority of the segment. segment for that matter. If you personally like one over the other, I think it's safe to go ahead and just buy that vehicle. Were it my money, I think I would probably buy the Honda and just deal with the infotainment system because the vehicle is dynamically the best of the three, and I think it's the most functional, coming with the most cargo space. Also, I had the most fun filming it, which usually implies that I like the exterior styling the best as well. The RAV4 is almost my pick because it's nearly as functional and good looking, plus the infotainment system responds much quicker, but it isn't as fun to drive as the CR-V. And finally, the Rogue would be worth the spend for me with a new engine and infotainment system, potentially both of which it will get in a mid-cycle update. I hope you enjoyed this comparison. If you want, feel free to leave a like. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day.